Cool. So, the reason why we're all here, tax dodging bill. Oriana, can we name 5 reasons why we need one?
So let's start with the most obvious, fighting poverty. We're all here for a reason, obviously, and we know that by passing a tax dodging bill, there is a great chance that we could generate money that we can then use to fight poverty. According to our estimations, we could generate up to 3.5 billion more in tax per year, and that's just in the UK. So in the developing countries, we can raise billions, and those billions can be used to build things like school, hospitals, and other essential public services. And yeah, this is the first kind of crucial one.
Cool. Then I will rival that with a second reason. If we can have the slide.
Yeah.
So injustice, as we say, this is a make tax fair training, and the big problem with tax at the moment is it's not fair. Whilst most of the public in the UK pays their fair share, big companies who have quite large sales, there was, let's see what we have here as my statistic. Yeah, so the 7 largest digital companies in the UK made 9.5 billion in UK sales in 2012 and only paid 54 million in tax. There's stats after stats on this. Also, the National Audit Office explained how 800 of the largest UK companies, 400 of them, so half, pay very little tax, whereas 160 pay no corporate tax at all. And at the moment, this is just not a fair system. So yeah, it's an injustice we need to fight.
Going on to the third reason, obviously very much linked to the previous ones, economic inequality. So there was a recent report from Oxfam showing that 85 of the richest people on the planet own as much as the poorest half of the planet, which is like 3.5 billion. And this is happening globally. So by pushing for a tax dodging bill in the UK, we can make things much better at a global level, and the additional revenues that we could generate, as I mentioned before, could be used to fight poverty both in the UK and in developing countries. Fourth,
so it's not just campaigners who are speaking up about this. There is general UK public anger about our current tax system. As sort of mentioned in point 2, headline after headline about tax dodgers, and research has shown that 85% of the UK public thinks that tax avoidance by big companies is immoral. 73% think that tax dodging in developing countries should not be allowed, and only 1 in 5 people in the UK think that the current government is actually doing enough to tackle this big problem.
Finally, why do we need a tax dodging bill now? Why do we need to act now? It's because it's the best time to make a change. So as you may know, the general elections are coming up in the UK on the 7th of May, and now more than ever, politicians are out there listening to what the public cares about. And so this is why we should keep up the pressure and just ask all political parties to show a bit more of commitment into tackling tax dodging. What we're asking for is basically to all parties to commit to introduce a tax dodging bill within the first 100 days after the general election. And we're going to tell you a bit more about what we've been doing so far and what are the next steps for the campaign and how you can actually help us take it to the next level.
So yeah, Murray, over to you. Could you explain a little bit about what has been happening so far in the tax campaign?
Yeah, so in terms of kind of what the UK has done so far in making tax fair, it's a bit of a mixed picture. So on the one hand, there's been a lot of campaigning about tax over the last few years. So sort of 4 or 5 years ago, tax really wasn't a big issue that anyone really knew or did much about. Kind of a few people did, but it was very niche. There's been a lot of campaigning over the last few years, and that's meant that tax has gone from kind of quite a technical issue to being an issue that's in all the papers, that, like we said, public opinion has shifted, and kind of politicians know now that they need to do something about this. And we've seen some changes over the last few years. Some of you might have been involved in the IF campaign that happened last year around the G8, and we got some good changes there to bits of tax law. So it shows that campaigning can work and can shift things in a good direction. We know that politicians want to listen. But at the same time, over the last few years, there have been quite a few changes to the UK's tax system that have meant that it's been easier and easier for big companies to pay less and less tax, and have made it a lot easier for UK companies to get away without paying their fair share of tax in some of the world's poorer countries. So we've kind of got public opinion shifting and politicians knowing they need to do more, but realistically the tax system's actually got a lot worse. So we really need to see kind of politicians commit to doing something much more serious to tackle tax dodging.
That's really interesting. And also at the moment, it's quite a big election point, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a really big issue in the elections so far. So back at the end of last year in November, George Osborne announced they'd introduced this new thing called a Google tax, which no one really expected them to come out with. It's quite a big step forwards for a party that's kind of not done a lot on some of these issues for quite a while, to come out and say they want to stop foreign companies that are avoiding tax in the UK and kind of get them to pay more tax. So that's a good step forwards, but that's got a big loophole in it, and it doesn't do all the things that we need. We need a tax dodging bill. I'll talk a bit more about all the things that does the Google tax doesn't. But also more recently, we've seen Labour say a lot of things about tax avoidance. They've been kind of accusing the Conservatives of being backed by tax dodgers, and basically we've seen politicians on all sides kind of jumping over each other to try and to be seen to be doing stuff about tax. So they know this is an issue they really have to engage with.
Cool. I've just seen that Eddie has joined the Hangout. Eddie, can you hear us? I'll take that as a no. Cool. So we'll try and reconnect with Eddie in a minute. But maybe, Murray, you could then explain what the tax dodging bill would be doing exactly.
Yeah, definitely. So the tax dodging bill is basically, so it's a bill, so it's a proposal for a law that we want MPs to pass, and it's about tackling tax dodging, which is, so basically tax dodging is all the ways that companies, in this case, can artificially reduce their tax bills. So this is about tax breaks, and it's about tax avoidance, and it's a little bit about tax evasion, but mostly about tax avoidance. So what do we want it to do? It's a proposal we've come up with for a law, and it does three main things. So firstly, it's about making sure that big companies that operate in the UK pay their fair share of tax here. So that means they can't dodge tax here by shifting money into tax havens, and it means they don't get big tax breaks. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. The second thing that it does is it ensures that UK tax rules don't incentivize UK companies to avoid tax in developing countries. It's about making sure that poorer countries get their fair share. And then the third bit is about making sure that the tax system is fairer, tougher, and more transparent. So it's kind of three bits. So it's getting more companies paying their fair share in the UK, getting UK companies paying their fair share in poorer countries, and about making the tax system more transparent and tougher. So those are the kind of three big things that you really need to remember. So I'll now go through what all of those are in detail. And don't worry if you don't get all of this or if you don't remember all of it. It's just about kind of knowing what it is, so that when you're talking about the campaign to people, you kind of understand what's in it. It's not that you need to be able to explain all of this, it's just so that you get an understanding of what's going on.
And also, if you want to follow what Murray is saying on the slides, you can click on, and it's not on your screen already, click on Oriana, because then it will share.
So if we go back to the first one, so making it harder for big companies to dodge UK taxes and make sure they're not getting unjustified tax breaks. So there's two big bits in this. So first one, ensure that foreign multinationals can't use tax havens to avoid paying their fair share of tax on their business in the UK. So this is about companies like, for example, Google or Starbucks, who've been accused of using tax havens, so in Google's case Ireland, or in Starbucks' case kind of Netherlands and Switzerland, to avoid paying some of the tax they should be paying in the UK. So the law should be changed so that those companies have to pay tax on more of the money they make in the UK. So that money should be coming in here rather than being shipped into tax havens. But also there are a lot of tax breaks in UK law that are given to big companies, and often it's given to big companies that lobby for them. But the Public Accounts Committee, which some of you may know, Margaret Hodge chairs it and is famous for kind of grilling some of these big tax dodging companies, they found that actually the government doesn't really keep track of these tax breaks and doesn't really tell how much they cost or whether they're actually delivering what they said they would in the first place. So we think all of these need to be reviewed. They need to look at whether they're doing what they should, how much they're costing, and if they're not delivering what they said they would or they're costing much more than they should, then they should all be got rid of. So that's the first bit, the UK bit. So then the next bit is about UK companies operating in poorer countries. So this bit's a bit, sometimes can be a bit harder to get your head around, kind of what's the UK tax system got to do with poorer countries, but actually it can have a really big impact. So the UK has some kind of anti-tax haven rules that are about how UK headquartered, so UK multinational companies, can shift their money around. And it used to be that if those companies took money out of a poorer country, put it in a tax haven, and then took it from the tax haven, put it in the UK, that money, the tax they'd save by putting it into that tax haven, that would get topped up when they brought it into the UK. So it kind of penalised them for using tax havens. So there was no real benefit of using tax havens to dodge tax out of developing countries in that way, because you got taxed on that money. However, in the last few years, those rules have been changed so that now that doesn't happen, and there's no real, it's now much easier to shift money out of poorer countries into tax havens. And these rules are called the Controlled Foreign Company Rules. And we want these to be reformed so that all these gateways and loopholes can be got rid of, and it means that if UK companies are using tax havens, then they get their tax topped up in the UK, which we think would raise billions of pounds in developing countries. And then the third bit is about making the tax system transparent and tougher. So a big problem with tax is that multinational companies can shift money around between different parts of them. So a big company might operate in 10 different countries and can move money out of lots of the countries it operates in into one where they pay very low tax, into a tax haven. So it's kind of just about how they shift money around internally. And one of the big problems is that these big companies aren't very transparent. We can't find out where they sell all their goods. We can't find out where they make all their profit. We can't find out kind of how they shift their money around. So we want there to be proper transparency of these companies so we can see where they sell things, where they make their money. And from that, you'll be able to see if they've, for example, got all their staff in the UK and they're making lots of sales in the UK, and they've got lots of staff in Zambia and they're making lots of sales in Zambia, but all their profits turning up in Switzerland. It's a pretty good sign they've got some kind of dodgy tax affairs going on and someone needs to look into it. So this kind of transparency is really important. And we want those reports to be made and to be made public. And then the last bit is about toughening up the tax regime. So that's about making sure there are bigger fines for tax dodgers, about making sure that tax advisors have to give fair tax advice, and just generally making sure the tax system is much tougher on people who are caught dodging tax. So that's kind of a whistle-stop tour through all the things that it does. I know there's a lot of detail in there, so I haven't seen any questions come up in the chat, but there'll definitely be time at the end to go through all of that. If anyone's got any questions, or if anyone just wants me to explain corporate tax dodging in a bit more detail, I'd be really happy to do that.
Brilliant, thanks Murray. Yeah, so as you can see, a pretty thorough bill and a pretty thorough way of tackling the unfair system that we have now for tax. Just wondering if Eddie, can you hear us? And I think you're on mute, so maybe if you press unmute on your screen. Cool.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. So Eddie, would you like to tell us a little bit about what tax activism looks like in Zambia?
It's pretty much the same as that side, but maybe the only difference is there's much better internet connection. All right. We do lots of activities around the tax power campaign here in Zambia under Activista, which of course is a youth network under action here in Zambia, and we work closely with them, and of course work closely with the campaigners under there. And regarding the tax dodging bill, I think listening to everything which Murray has been saying, last week I was in Mazabuka, and I went to talk to some head teachers who have a school which is located within one of Zambia's sugar plantations there, which is run by Associated British Foods. And I had a conversation with the head teacher there, and you could see he complained that, for instance, they've sent different proposals to the that UK multinational to help them with infrastructure, because at the moment they do not have proper toilet for the kids to use, and they have to send away certain kids from school because they do not have enough space. And then he told me that actually the bosses of these multinationals, that is APF, they would rather donate money to golf than, you know, come up with a proper corporate social responsibility. But beyond that, regarding our campaign, I mean, basing it on the Sweet Nothing report, which is why I went in Mazabuka just to have a discussion with them and tell them about the tax dodging bill, which I was doing there, and you read a lot in my blog. So we do lots of campaigning here as well. For instance, like the one which I've told you, where we do community sensitization, especially in the affected communities. And of course, we do march to the head offices of some of these subsidiaries of the multinationals, and we work a lot with the students. So along those lines, it's quite similar to pretty much what you do, but then maybe the environment there is more favorable for a lot more people to join the campaign.
Yeah, because that's really interesting, and it'd also be really good to hear your views on why it is that we need to be taking action in the UK to make tax fair, because of course there are strong links between our efforts here and your efforts there.
Yes. I think the impact is the same. Probably it's more extreme here when multinationals come here and they don't pay their fair share tax and they channel their profits through tax havens. But here it's a lot more visible, because when you walk, for instance, into any government school, you see how underfunded they are. You find the overcrowding even in the hospitals. And that is why, for instance, there's some of the points that took away from the proposed tax dodging bill by the campaigners that side in the UK is the fact that you also seek to address some of the tax loopholes in the developing countries, because that's a very big problem. Multinationals take advantage of some of our tax policies here. They always take advantage of them, and also they take probably advantage of the position which our countries are in. So personally, from an activist point of view in Zambia, I look at also the country by country reporting, which came out also strongly in the Thabo Mbeki report. Those are some of the things I feel, even us here, if you were to have a similar campaign, considering that we'll be having elections next year, those are some of the things which we'll be pushing for.
Thank you, Eddie. It's brilliant. Yeah, just also reminding us that to make tax fair isn't just a campaign in the UK, but it really is a global movement. And I'm sure everyone's got lots of questions for Eddie, and you'll be around at the end, right, to answer some of those. Brilliant. Thanks. Cool. So what has been happening in this campaign so far? If we get the slide up. So yeah, we launched actually just over a month ago on the 27th of January, which was a big online push. Some of you may have joined that. Again, if you want to see the slides, click on Oriana, and you can see some photographs of all that's been taking place in only the last 6 weeks. We've had trainings, 15, I believe, across the country. We had an advocacy event in Parliament where we invited MPs to be briefed on the tax dodging bill, and 54 showed up in the end to show their support for this. We've reacted to a lot of the news that's been breaking recently, and of course our activists and volunteers have started to meet with their PPCs and their MPs, something which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. So all in all, a great start. We've had 58,500 people sign the petition to make tax fair and to ask for a tax dodging bill within the first 100 days. And like I said, about 11,000 people contacting their political candidates to make sure that this stays an ambitious issue on the run up to the elections. Oriana, do you want to tell us a bit about what's the next steps?
Yeah. Sure. So what we're trying to do from now to the election is put pressure on all political parties through their election candidates, the so-called prospective parliamentary candidates. So as I said, we want to take advantage of the fact that they're out there listening to us, and we want to really, really keep the pressure up. March and April are going to be crucial months because a lot of local hustings are happening, and we've been training people all over the UK on how to lobby their election candidates. We put together some events and some key dates to be able to basically take advantage of some moments where the media and the public are going to be a bit more active. And the first one coming up is a stand happening on the 17th of March. This is the day before the budget gets delivered to the Parliament. So keep an eye on our social media for a bit of fun. And we're also putting together we put together a little campaign pack for you guys to create your own stand. So you can basically organize your own action at uni or in your local community. And after this training, I'm going to send around a set of resources. And if you're seeing this on YouTube after this live streaming, you can get in touch with us through the Tax Dodging Bill website, the contact form that is on the website. And the website is taxdodgingbill.org.uk. So yeah, Rachel is going to talk about the stunt a little bit more later, but for now I think what we want to really convey through this training is really how you can get active and lobby your MP, your PPC actually. So Sophie from Action International, she's going to talk a bit more about how she's done it before and how you can actually do it as well. Do you want to go on with that? Thanks a lot.
Again, make sure that you're following the slides by clicking on Oriana. Oh.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me just go on so I can see the slides. Okay, so do you want to go to the next one?
Yeah.
Right, so why is it really important to lobby your MP right now? As they were saying before, now is the best time to go and talk to your MP because they want to know what it is that people in their constituency care about. They want to get elected, and MPs that are already running, they want to be re-elected. So if you see their websites at the moment, they'll be talking about lots of campaigns that they're doing and how they're supporting people in their constituency. So now is the right time to go and meet your prospective parliamentary candidate, or go and see your MP and speak to them about what it is you care about, the tax dodging bill. So in April, the political parties will publish their manifestos, and that's why we're really wanting people to go and meet their MPs now, or prospective parliamentary candidates. So one thing to think about if you are going to go and lobby your MP is it's nothing to be worried about, it's nothing to be intimidated by. They're used to having meetings with people from their constituency all the time. And if you go and talk to them about the tax dodging bill, it's important to remember that this bill is independent of all political parties. It's not about targeting one political party over another. It's just that we want all parties to adopt a tax dodging bill. So if you do go and have a meeting with them, make sure you don't kind of make it party political. So I've lobbied my MP a couple of times, and I've also gone to see one of my prospective parliamentary candidates. And what I did for that was I did a little bit of research about the kinds of issues that she's interested in right now. It's important to not be an expert in like the tax dodging bill, but just research some of the things that they care about and if they have spoken about it before. And one way, the way you can find your where are we? Yeah, you can find your MP by going on the tax dodging bill website. That's a really good way to find it, because all you do is type in your postcode and the candidates running will come up, and you can press a button and you can send them an email to say that you want them to support the bill, and you can ask them for a meeting and they will get back to you. Some of them will be really good at getting back to you and do that really quickly to show that they are taking an interest. If not, it's fine. You can follow up. You can call their office and you can book an appointment with them that way. So yeah, email them, call them, or contact them through their office. I've done it on my own before. I've gone to see an MP on my own before, and I've gone recently in a small group. The good thing about the tax dodging bill website is that you can say you email your candidate and they get back to you and they say, yeah, I'd like to meet you. you can post that event on the Tax Dodging Bill website, so that people in your area can see that, and you can go together, or you can meet up and have a chat and say, okay, we're going to go and talk to this parliamentary candidate about the tax dodging bill, and you can decide what it is you're going to say and who's going to say what. That's probably the best way to do it if you go in a group, because you won't be all talking at the same time, and you can make sure you cover everything you want to cover. So yeah, you can find out. I mean, you can even go on the website now and see if any meetings are already scheduled, and you can get in contact with your local organizer or local coordinator, and organize a meeting to talk about it. What I would say is, if you do go in a group, have a meeting before, and although you're going to decide what it is you need to say, when you're in that meeting, you want to kind of make sure you say your bit, but give the MP or the parliamentary candidate time to respond, because sometimes you can spend so much time making sure you said it right and you've got your figures right and facts right, and you haven't actually got them to commit to anything. So that almost happened to me once, but we remembered at the end, and we kind of got them to say, right, what are you going to do? Are you going to promote the campaign on your personal website? Will you tweet with us about the campaign, and will you have a picture? That kind of thing. Make sure you get those things in. But I just want, it's really nothing to get stressed about. They might not even know as much as you do about the issue, or they may have had some stuff that they've done recently, and that's the other point about doing some research first. So one of the meetings that I went to recently, I met a Labour candidate, and she sent an email before saying some of the things that her party were going to do to tackle tax dodging, and that was really good, because I can then go and do some research and find a sort of answer or a way to talk with her about that, and say, that's great, but we need you to go a bit further. And if anyone needs any help with anything like that, hard questions or things to say in the interview, you can contact people at the Action Aid or the Tax Dodging Bill via the website, and they're really good, and they'll help you find some answers and some things to say. So that's what I would say about going to meet your MPs or candidates.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah, so like we said, it's these, the website is they work for you. So always remember that they need to meet with you and listen to you. If we can have the slides, I'll just, because Sophie touched on a lot of really, really good points. So yeah, preparing for your meeting, like we said, you don't need to be an expert. Have a read through of the website, make sure that you feel comfortable with the information, but it's also totally fine to make this a personal, to bring your personal experiences to the meeting. The key talking points. So easiest way whenever you're talking to someone about a campaign is, what is the problem, what is the impact, and what is the solution. So even if you're going in a group, maybe decide who's going to take which element of this, or for yourself, have this in your mind, and we'll send around the PowerPoint after this, so you don't have to really, really quickly read it and memorize it, but that's always quite useful. And then, yeah, also ways to sort of make this convincing, because in the end you do want to leave the office of your MP or PPC having them think, wow, I have to do something about this. So make it personal. The great thing about this campaign is that people are campaigning on this for many different reasons, whether it's the fact that you think that we shouldn't be dodging taxes in developing countries, whether it's the fact that you just don't think it's fair. Bring that to the conversation, and feel free to sort of add your reasons for wanting to make tax fair to that conversation. Highlight public anger. Like we said, politicians always want to feel like they're part of a discussion that's important, that a lot of people are a part of. And even if you want to just take these stats along, because they're pretty impressive, it shows that there aren't a lot of people who will disagree with taking ambitious action on making tax fair. And of course, also, remember for yourself, it's important to meet with your MPs and all your PPCs, not just because of lobbying acts and things like that, but also just as a tactic. This election that's coming up is one of the most difficult to predict that we've had in a very long time, and because of that, every single party is trying to have their own stance on tax. So the more that we can sort of have this be a race to the top and almost play the different parties against each other in making them more and more ambitious to support our tax dodging bill, the better. And then finally, like Sophie mentioned, you know, the best thing is any conversation, end it with, so what are you going to do? And these are 4 points that we think you can suggest when they go, I don't know, what would you suggest, which would be the best response, except for, of course, commit to a tax dodging bill. So yeah, ask them to express support for the tax dodging bill, ask them to contact their party leaders, ask them to have a photo taken with a tax dodging bill poster. We can either send one of these to you or you can download it from the tax dodging bill website. And also, of course, ask them if they can promote the campaign on their website, on their Twitter, and their local media. So yeah, again, like we said, don't have to memorize all of this. It's also on the website and in the documents that we'll send around, but it's quite handy to have in mind. And yeah, oh, sorry, that's not going to work over the internet. Can we go to the next slide? Cool. And then, of course, after your meeting, you want to, of course, build a relationship with your MP, PPCs, because whoever it is that is elected will be representing you for the next 5 years. So make sure, of course, to that this is part of you building a relationship, because it will just make you a better campaigner for it. So after the meeting, email the candidate, maybe, you know, gently remind them of what they've promised you to do. And it says here, let Rachel know, which is me, how it went. But best thing is to always keep your activist contacts, whether this is at ActionAid, Oxfam, Christian Aid. Just make sure that you keep somebody from the tax dodging bill coalition up to date on what your MPs, PPCs are promising, because this way we can keep adjusting our tactics and making sure that this campaign is reacting to what to all the knowledge that you guys are building and generating for us as well. Cool. So that's a little bit on how to lobby. The final part, as Oriana mentioned earlier, from end of March, we won't be meeting with MPs or PPCs anymore, as at that point the government will be stopping. So then we're encouraging everyone to go to local hustings. This is again, a husting is basically a space where parliamentary candidates are speaking about issues. It's a great space for a bit of local activism, because basically all of your constituency will hopefully be there. And this is also a really good space to play off any of those people who've not been reacting to your emails, to your calls. You know, the PPCs and MPs who have met with you in these hustings will have a bit of a step ahead because of what you've been telling them. And if you've not been able to meet with anyone, also again, great space to get a question in about what they'll do to commit to making tax fair and whether they'll support a tax dodging bill. And again, in the PowerPoint, there's a suggestion on the question that you could ask, but again, feel free to make it personal. Yeah, next slide. Cool. So that's a bit on sort of our main lobbying tactic, and also sort of the main bit of this training. Like we said, I'd really like to reiterate that after you've got in contact, I guess probably easiest is for me to just basically say, what are you going to do after this online training? So after this training, go to the Tax Dodging Bill website. Here you have a really easy form where you can fill in your postcode. It will track who your PPCs, MPs are, and you can send an email through that, asking them for a meeting and asking them to support the tax dodging bill. This will also show you who your local coordinator is. So this is the person who in your area is coordinating meetings. They'll have the knowledge on whether you might already have a meeting with your MP or PPC that you can go along to. So yeah, definitely. Oh, Oriana's just put it at the side, which is really useful. Click on that link. And then any sort of meetings you have, any responses you have, like Sophie mentioned, they might send you a letter, they might tweet something out, send you an email, forward that on to your activist lead, or if you're not affiliated to any of the organizations, send it in to the website. There is also a feedback form, which is taxdodgingbill.org.uk /feedback. And sorry, like we said, it's just very important to report back on everything that you're experiencing locally, because this way we can build a bit of a picture of how this campaign is progressing. Cool. So that was us doing a lot of talking. I've seen that there's a few great questions down the sidebar, but is there anybody who would like to kick off asking questions? We could sort of like have you unmute yourself. No questions at all? If you're afraid to speak up, also feel free to like type down the side. Cool.
So I just wanted to add, as I said, after this training. Hi. So I just wanted to add an extra bit here. So after this training, as I mentioned, we are going to send you all the campaign packs and information, including this video. And if you're not part of this call, you can still get in touch through the Contact Us form on the Tax Dodging Bill website. The way that we see that going through is we obviously want you to get involved in lobbying as much as possible, but there are other ways to get involved as well. So you can share this, you can share all of our social media posts about the tax dodging bill. You can create your own stand at uni, and again, if you want to receive the package on how to organize your own stand, materials and resources, just get in touch. The idea that we had in mind is to organize a tax dodgeball. So it's kind of a fun way to get people involved and to even just get people stop on the street and ask you what's going on. And the idea is to get as many people to sign up our petition as possible. We're going to do a couple of hand-ins of the petition that you guys already signed. And yeah, and if you want to come up with your own ideas and just anything that can help us keep up the pressure, we'd be really happy to hear from you guys. I guess that's it. If you guys don't have any questions, you can even email us afterwards if you want, but if you don't have any question, I think that's basically it.
Cool. Yeah, thanks also, Eddie, from coming in from Zambia. It was really good to speak to you again as well.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
See you soon. Bye.
Good luck. All the best.
Bye.
Thanks, Eddie.